Shalom, welcome everybody. We're going to read Parashat Shoftim, or at least part of it. One wants to raise a hand or annotate on the screen. Here's how you can do it. We're going to start at the beginning, but I'd like to jump forward eventually to a specific part of this parasha that I think many of you will find intriguing. Would anyone like to volunteer to get us started? Volunteer to read what's on the screen here? Okay, then I will. Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha b'chol sha'arecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha lishvatecha v'shaftu et ha'am mishpat tzedek. All right, so we have a lot of words here that are fairly simple. Who is a shofet?
A judge.
A judge, from the root shafat, which we think of as judging, but originally meant something more like to make a decision. So you can see like how it transforms from make a decision into things like judgment, custom, tradition, something like that. That root shafat can be translated in all those ways in the Bible, depending on what section we're looking at. So that's the root right there, shafat. What kind of word is shoftim? Is it a noun? Is it a verb? Is it an adjective? What is it?
Verb.
Remember we've discussed this before, right? So I'm an oddball.
Adjective.
I would call it an adjective, but if we want to be proper, let's just call it a participle or participle. It is a participle, which comes in 4 flavors, like all adjectives do. Verbs have person, gender, number, but adjectives only have 4, gender, number. So I'm of the opinion that this is an adjective, but whatever it is, we'll call it a participle. And does anyone know the modern Hebrew word for police? Law enforcement.
Mishtara.
Mishtara, from this root right here. So shoter is going to be an official, an officer of some kind. The Parsha is telling us, Shoftim v'shotrim, judges and officers, titen lecha. This is a little bit more difficult than beginners. What's the root of titen?
Gift. Natan.
Okay. Matan is a gift. Natan is to give. They come from the same root. Titen has a tav at the beginning and the root nun. The first root letter nun is missing. It has been assimilated into the strong dagesh there. We don't see it. Some weak letters do that in Hebrew. Nun, vav, yod. Here it's a nun. So we're taking natan, to give, putting a tav at the front that says, you shall do it. And we get, instead of tin, ten, we get titain with a strong dagesh. The nun's missing. You shall give. Well, it says make. Okay, well, that's a translator's choice. You shall put, place, give. Lecha. Le, for. Cha. Cha means you, right? It's a 2MSU. So le, for, cha, you, lecha.
That's not a double. That's not a double doubling the gash, is it? And on
where?
On shall you make a double doubling?
The dagesh inside of the second tav is a doubling dagesh, like we talked about because of the missing nun, the first root letter. But the first tav does not have a doubling dagesh. So we have 2 kinds of dagesh in Hebrew. One that shows up on 6 certain letters and makes the pronunciation more plosive. And those are the so-called begad kefat or beged kefet letters, of which begad kefat is one of them. Tav is one of them. And so tav can have weak or strong dagesh. Here it's weak. How do we know it's weak? Because there's no vowel before it. We know this one is strong. Why? Well, the converse, because there is a vowel before it. But in the end, what difference does it make? Weak or strong? the pronunciation stays the same in modern pronunciation. It's just that the strong dagesh tells us, bing, something's missing, something's doubled, what happened. And it could be part of the structure of the word with a strong doubling dagesh. So it's literally just, or excuse me, it's grammatically a doubled letter, or it could be a matter of, oh, there's a missing letter here. And that's what happened in our example. The noon of the root is missing, natan. So that one is strong. Is this one weak or strong?
It's weak.
I believe it's weak.
But there's a vowel before it.
Oh,
Oh,
then it's strong.
bother. Okay, so here's the thing. The other thing to remember is that if you have a cantillation mark, an accent mark, that tells you to pause a little bit before moving on to the next word, you can get a weak dagesh after that. Okay, then it's like, pause here, l'cha, pause. Now we're starting afresh. B'chol sha'arecha. Okay, so because of that little thing right there, I would concede that it's probably a weak dagesh. But if you have a cantillation mark where there's a vowel, but excuse me, a cantillation mark that is not a disjuncting cantillation mark, and so it should be read together with the preceding word, there are times where you'll actually get a strong dagesh at the beginning of the word. But usually, you're not going to get a strong dagesh at the beginning of the word. Usually. It's always an exception. It's Hebrew. What is a sha'ar?
A gate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's right there. It's super easy. Let's see. What kind of a word is this?
Natan.
That's the root. We saw the root earlier up here, but it's a different kind of word. It's a different form. What kind or form of word has oh-eh? Surprise, surprise, we actually had two of them. Shofetim should be shofetim, shofetim. But since we're lazy, that eh sounds gets reduced to a shva and becomes shofetim instead of shofetim. So this is a participle. Shotrim is also a participle. Noten is, you guessed it, also a participle. The one who is giving.
Hey.
Asher
So
Adonai Elohecha. Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
are we going with verb or adjective on this one? And
We're
just
going with
remind-
participle, but in my classroom, I'm going to emphasize that it's an adjective that can tell you, it describes what someone is doing. Okay, so it is an adjective.
Let's clarify. Remind me the
Sure.
difference between verb and adjective then.
Okay,
Because it's a little blurry in this.
okay. An adjective describes a noun.
Oh,
If
I
I
have
can.
oh,
A verb, especially in Hebrew, will have is an action with a built-in subject. It usually tells us things like either tense or aspect, and like I said, built-in person, gender, number. So built-in subject, and it's an action with, I call it, I guess I prefer calling it aspect instead of tense. Hebrew doesn't have tense like English does. Past, present, perfect, perfect, future perfect, stuff like that. So I'll call it aspect instead, whether it's a completed action or an incompleted action. So for example, this right here is a verb. Who is the built-in subject of this verb?
the judge.
Okay, so that's the root. It's the same as the root up here. So this word and that word, they have the same root, but this one up here is a participle, which Mr. Jared is calling an adjective. And this one down here is a verb. So it has to have a built-in subject. Who is the built-in subject? The oo on the end is what tells you about the built-in subject.
Judges.
Very good. So that's maybe um that's the explicit subject that we can gain from the context, and that's cool. But you should be able to look at a verb and get a general idea of who the subject is. That ooh on the end means they did something.
Are you on mute?
They did something. What did they do? Shafat, they judged. And then this v at the beginning is what's called a conversive vav that flips it from they judged into and they shall or will judge. But that ooh right there is what tells you it's a third person common plural, which in English we call they. Remember, in any conversation, there are three persons. The one speaking is first person, the one listening is second person, and the one we're talking about is third person. Well, they are not in the conversation with, me and you, or us and you all, or whatever. So they're third person. And oo is used both for feminine and masculine. So we're going to call it common gender. It's used for both, and plural because they is more than one.
So does
Is
that,
it the ending of Anaknu?
Anachnu is first person, common plural. First person because we are the ones speaking. Common because men and women will use it alike, and plural because we is always more than one. Tim, what did you ask?
so does that make that a passive participle because of the vav in the front? It's not a specific judgment, but it's a future action that's not completed.
Passive means that we know who received the action. So if I walk my dog, I'm the subject doing the verb. That's active. But if the dog was walked, well, the dog is now the subject, but the dog is receiving the action of being walked. It's passive. The object in an active verb sentence becomes the subject in a passive verb sentence. So this is not passive because they shall judge. They're the ones doing the action. It's active, not passive. If we wanted to talk about passive participle, then it's going to have an oo vowel in it, but it's going to be elsewhere. Let's take the root sagar, which means he closed, and we put a vav right here, shuruk right there, and we get sagur. So this au is a passive participle. If I want to describe the gate, the sha'ar, as being closed, I would say sha'ar sagur, a closed gate. Or I could say ha she'arim ha sgurim. And it describes the noun as being sagur, closed, or the gates, plural, as being closed. So the passive participle, just like the participle, also is an adjective. So active participle has o e, as long as we don't lose the e, whereas passive participle is a u. Those patterns are extremely important in Hebrew. If anyone hasn't grasped the weight, the power of patterns in Hebrew, let me just take a second to say we're all familiar with the three-letter triconsonantal root system. We look at a noun, verb, adjective. Oh, there's its root. It tells us the general meaning. But the pattern of the word, the vowel pattern, whether it's a or o-e or a-u or whatever it happens to be, that pattern brings the function of the word. Up here, we've got shofetim, originally shofet. Down here, we have shafatu, which would have originally been shafatu. But anyway, that pattern right there differentiates between they who are doing the action of judging against they shall judge. Mishpat tzedek. All right, I think we're pretty good here. Did anyone have any questions before we move on to the next reading? All right, who's going to be my first reader here on the second slide? I thought someone earlier was going to read the other slide. Go ahead, Eileen. Go ahead.
Lo Ta to no to toteha
There's no O sound. Ta-te.
tate.
Mhm.
Mi shefta lo
Mishpat.
mishpat.
Mhm.
Yeah, mishpat lo ta ka iri
Lo takir.
lo takir um, mm, pe pe peneim
Mhm. Panim. Panim.
panim velo um, hakata
Velo tikach.
tihach
Yeah, tikach. From lakach, to take.
tikach.
Now this has a whole bunch of dots on it. There's your sheen over there, your cantillation mark in the middle, and an O sound on the left.
Sho te re
This
No,
is a chet followed by dalet.
Sho he da
That's right. Now, because the cantillation mark is on the sheen, it's shochad. So put the stress on the sheen.
shochad
Shochad. Uh-huh.
had
Shochad.
ki had
There it is again.
I ha shochta
Ki hashochad.
ki ha shochad I ur
There's a vav with a dot in
ur
it. Is it an oo sound here? I don't think so, because this vav has a vowel attached to it underneath. So the vav is not a vowel itself if it has a vowel attached to it. So we have yaver. It's a consonantal
Ver.
vav. Yaver.
ver ye aver
Mhm.
a I
2 dots makes, what sound do they make? Those 2 dots? A. A nay, or a nay if you want to include that in the model. Mhm. Right. A nay.
Chokmaim
Close. Chacha. Chacha. Mim.
chacha chochamim
There's no O. It's a chacha. Depending on how you want to.
chacha
In modern pronunciation, we would just say chacha, but it should be pardon? Chacha. Like the chet is more in the throat, cha, whereas the kaf is
chochamim
right at the back of the palate. So it's cha. But that's very hard to say. So in modern pronunciation, but they both kind of become the same sound. Chachamim or chachamim.
ve'i shofet.
Wait a second. That's a samich, not a shin.
Oh, va'i shelepach
Visalef.
lef. Oh, visalef.
Mm-hmm. Divrei.
Divrei
That's it.
sa Tzadikefmen?
That's a final mem. Tzadikim.
Tzadikim.
And syllables up so that you can take a big problem and turn it into small problems. And in case anyone hasn't noticed, there's a little reading bar cheat sheet down here that you can go through and kind of figure out what the vowels are. I've got long vowels in each of these 5 sections. Looks like my internet connection is unstable. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I could
In
still
each
hear
of
you.
these 5 categories of a, e, I, o, u, long vowels come first, short vowels come next, and the reduced vowel comes third. Okay, so we've got and we have and e, and o, and oo, and oo. So long, short, and there is no reduced oo because it uses this one right here. But I digress. And I would like to read, oops, let me undo. There we go. I'm going to read through one time. Follow along with me. I'll go super slow. Lo tate mishpat lo takir panim vlo tikach shוחד כי השוחד יעוור עיני חכמים ויסלף דברי צדיקים. Okay, we can, let's see. We see a common word showing up over and over and over again. Lo. This is a negative particle. Bonus points to anyone can tell me what part of speech lo belongs to. It's an adverb. Adverbs describe how, when, where, to what degree or extent something is done. So lo, being a negative particle, says how something is done. It wasn't. It's an adverb. But who cares about that grammar stuff? Tate, do we have a strong dagesh in the tet here?
It's preceded by a vowel.
Ergo,
Strong.
therefore,
It's
it's
yes.
strong. Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
so then the next question becomes, why is it there? Is it because the pattern of the word necessitates a strong dagesh, or is it because something went missing? The third option could be for the sake of euphonics, which simply means it sounded better, so the scribes put it in there. It's not euphonics. So which one is it? Is it part of the pattern of the word, or do we have a missing letter?
I think there's a missing letter.
Me too. Which one?
Noon?
Yes, and it's actually a trick question. There are 2 missing letters. Not here, but there's a missing root letter over here too. The root is nun, tet, yod. Remember I said nuns are weak and go missing sometimes? Vavs are weak and go missing sometimes, and yods. So in this root, we have 2 missing root letters.
Oh
Nun here is causing the strong dagesh, and the yod that's missing towards the end was simply omitted, and all we're left
okay
with
with that.
all we're left with is a vowel at the end. So tate instead of something more like tantai or something like that. So originally we would have expected something like tan tai or ti or tai, no, shofete. I guess it would be te or something like that. It's hard to know because it's not a real Hebrew word. It's trying to what's the word? It's trying to restore something from before language got lazy and stopped pronouncing it. So it's a hypothetical exercise, but it stands to reason that there used to be a noon here and a yod there. Because of laziness, the noon got lost into there, and the yod dropped off, which left us with a vowel hey at the end. We end up with tate. The root nun tet yod, which a lot of dictionaries are going to call nun tet hey. If you want to look up this root in the dictionary, you're going to look under nun tet hey. Is hey a root letter? No, it's a vowel. But that's just the way the dictionary is, so we have to play their game. What is the root meaning of this, of the nun tet yod? It means to kind of recline or decline or incline. And if you cause that action to happen, you're causing something to tilt, to slant. And the commandment here is don't slant or cause slanting of judgment. Lo takir panim. Here we have kind of the same pattern. Lo, verb, noun. Lo, verb, noun. So we can pretty much expect that these are going to be parallel and therefore saying the same thing, just with different words. Hebrew loves doing that. So don't cause slanting of judgment, equated with don't takir panim. Takir. Here's another strong dagesh, telling us that we have a missing, you guessed it, nun. The root nun kafresh is to recognize. Okay. Oh, that's what's his name. He pays a lot of money to the synagogue. He's got a lot of power and pull. No, don't recognize or respect panim, faces, literally faces. But the idea is, individuals, persons. Velo tikach shochad. Hey, there it is again. Lo, verb, noun. Don't tikach. another missing.
Noon.
No, I baited you in and you took it.
Yod.
Lamed.
Okay, so here it's actually
Lamed.
not a yod or a noon. It's Cheryl had it right. It's a missing lamed. This is the only verb in Hebrew that has a missing lamed, but it behaves just like a missing noon verb. Most of the verbs where the noon goes missing in the first root letter, they belong to a category called pei nun. Pei means beginning or first root letter. Noon means, noon. So if the first root letter is a noon, you expect it to go missing in certain forms, like the so-called future or prefix or yiktol forms. Tikach behaves the same way, alas, it has a missing lamed instead. What's the root lakach? Take a moment to remember it. Take. So instead of til kach, it just became tikach. You, remember that the tav at the beginning says you, usually second person, masculine, singular, you, general you, like we use in English. You will take or you shall take. Lo! You shall not take. Shochad. Shochad. What part of speech is a shochad?
It's a noun, I think.
It's a noun. Good.
Noun.
Can you think of any other nouns that have the same pattern? Oh, ah. Oh, ah.
Let's go upstairs, bud.
Kova.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. That's a good one. Now I'm just trying to remember if it's kaf or kuf. Kova, I thought.
Kaf, kaf.
Oh, okay. It's with a kaf. Okay. Are you sure about that?
I'm never sure about anything these days. But
Well, what was the word? What was the word?
Kova.
Kova.
I'm trying to remember. A kova is a something that covers your head, a hat
I'm
usually.
pretty sure it's a cough, though.
Pretty sure it's a kaf. So whether it's a
Almost
kaf
put
or a
my
kuf,
life on it.
Whether it's a kaf or a kuf doesn't really matter. There's plenty of Israelis that don't know how to spell, so forgive me for not knowing at times. What I'll do is I'll pull up my dictionary while it's loading. We'll continue here. So how about rochav? Okay, what is a kova?
Thought you said it was a covering.
A
Mhm.
cover, yeah.
A
Yeah,
head
so
covering?
we'll call it a hat, kova. What's a rochav?
Isn't that like a width?
Yeah. So the word rachav means wide. Ro. All right. This one might be a little tricky, but this is what happens after you've enjoyed a wonderful meal. What is sova? Your imaginations are going crazy. I know what happens after I've enjoyed a good meal.
Sleep?
Okay, so all right. Sava means to be satiated, to be satisfied. So what is
Oh.
sova if it's a noun?
Satiation?
Yeah, right?
Satiation?
Satisfaction, somewhere in that
Shin?
neighborhood. Yeah, exactly. All right, now I'm a little bothered by not knowing how to spell kova, so I'm going to use my little app that I made and type in. Tell you what, let's go ahead and give the benefit of the doubt. Put a kaf, bet ayin, and probably put a vav right there because it's modern pronunciation. Kova. Oh, you win! You win!
Should have bet.
Biblically, you should have. Biblically, it's going to be a helmet. In modern Hebrew, just a hat. So now I have to know if there is a kuf. Kava, right, nikba, like for example, to set a date or to fix an appointment, to decide or determine. Kavanu, like we made a date, we made a decision to meet on a certain date. So there is a root kava with a kuf, but I don't. What's this? Oh,
Says helmet or steel
Both right.
helmet. They're both right.
okay. So apparently, kuf with the kuf is more archaic. Is that what's happening here?
I think
It's a
I think
second. Look at that. It's a secondary form of kova with a kaf. We both win. Yeah, you should have bet. We'd have both lost. All right. Any rate, that's why I didn't remember the spelling. At any rate, oa is a noun. Is it the same pattern as words like kodesh?
Kodesh.
Or, well, I don't want to get too difficult here. Let's think of another one. Well, there's Hodesh, which is almost identical. Hodesh. Is it the same pattern?
Not the same. Not the
Okay.
same.
Yeah, we can
vowel.
see that it's not the same vowels. It's not the same vowels. However, segols almost always are artificial. The original pattern of this word is an O vowel with two shvas. Okay, so that means our original pattern would be some sort of an O vowel with a shva here and a shva there, which is almost unpronounceable. I mean, it's like your mouth is like playing Twister to get all these consonants out. Chodj or koj or shokhd. And Arabic still does this. But Hebrew decided to change things up a little bit and turn this shva here into some sort of a, short vowel, usually a segol, unless gutturals get in the way.
Hmm.
Then it's going to prefer more an ah sound than a segol. Furthermore, look at this one right here. Yofi. this is also the same pattern, but instead of a shva, instead of a segol, instead of a patach, we get a yod as the third root letter. That pulls this artificial vowel into a chirik. Oy vavoy. The point is, all of these words are nouns that are of the pattern, I guess I'll just call it kotl. Kotl. Okay, so in modern Hebrew, we would call it kotel, like this. The kuf, which I call a K here and probably should have called a Q, is just an arbitrary root letter that represents the first letter of the root. So this is your first root letter. Tet is the second one. Lamed is the third. Who cares about that? We're looking at the vowels. O-eh. O-eh. So chodesh belongs to it. Of course it does. Kodesh belongs to it. Of course it does. Can you all think of any other O-eh words? I don't know why I can only think of two of them right now. Yeah, wow. But the point is that if certain other letters show up as either the second or third letter, it can affect that artificial segol and turn it into something else, whether a patach because of gutturals or a chirik because of yods. They are still the same pattern. They are nouns.
Moed.
So
with
looking-
the one.
Moed. Okay, so
Moed.
moed doesn't have the stress on the O, does it? Otherwise, it would be moed.
Mm.
What is a moed?
An appointed time.
It has a tzere, which is not artificial. It's not an artificial segol. Just like we saw earlier with shofet, that would be the same as this one. Hang on a second. Moed. Ah, see, I messed it up. I messed it up. How could I have done it? It's not like shofet. Can anybody tell me what the root of moed is? Hint, it has a missing letter.
Lamed. No.
There's a vav in here.
Vav.
Vav ein dalet is the root. Vav ein dalet. The vav is messing up the vowels. Let me show you a different word. Anybody know the word moshav?
Mm-hmm.
Moshav. What is a moshav? It's from the root yashav, or originally washav, and it means to sit. And mem at the front tells us that we have some sort of a noun where the action of sitting takes place. Well, that's a seat. A moshav is a seat or a place of sitting or dwelling. So moed, it does have a tzere here, which tells us that it might have more of a causative flavor to it. But the point is, it's a noun related to vav ein dalet. What's that? Meeting. A va'ad is a committee. A moed is something that causes meeting. So who said appointed time? That's exactly what it is. A moed is an appointed time, something that causes meeting together. No, let's look for words that have an o-eh instead of a o-eh. Can't believe I can't think of any. All right, well,
Since you put the double schwa there, so that first schwa would be silent. The second one would be an eh, so it's missing a yod at the end, right? Since we're making it up.
oh boy. Okay, I highly recommend that you go on Hungry for Hebrew and watch my video called something about seglets. What was it? In the grammar section, look for my seglets video, and it goes into a lot more detail about these buggers. The point is that Hebrew originally had case endings, vowels that showed up at the end of the word. So the word would have been something more like chudshu, with this O originally being an U sound, chudshu or kudshu or something like that. We lost the case ending, which now gives us this impossible to pronounce chudj, after which Hebrew turns it into a segol. So I would not argue that that we have a silent shva followed by some either audible shva or something else. There used to be a full vowel attached to it, chudshu or something like, or chudsha or chudshi. And we lost those case endings a long time ago, but Arabic and Akkadian and let's see, languages that still preserve those. Okay, any other comments, questions before we move on from here? So the point of this verse is, don't take a bribe. I know they call it a gift. It's a bribe. If you're giving a judge a gift, it's because you want him to decide a certain way. You want to give him a bribe. Why? A bribe blinds the eyes of the chachamim. What is chacham? Eyes of the chachamim. What is chacham?
Wise.
Wise. Chachamim would be the wise ones. It's an adjective that describes someone as being chacham, but it's in the plural. So ones who are wise. Yeah, wise ones. Visalef, twisting, perverting, divrei, the words of tzadikim. Tzedek is righteous or righteousness. Tzadikim would be righteous ones. And how do I know there's an of that should go between these two words? Besides the fact that the translation inserts it.
It's Yud at the end of Dvarim instead of usual ending.
The usual ending would probably be dvarim with an im, but when it's in construct and therefore makes an of relationship, we get a yod. How would you say God of Israel?
Elohei Yisrael.
Very good. Instead of the regular Elohim, again, we're going to get yod. Elohei, we need another word, Yisrael. Very good. Elohei Yisrael. That tells us we're in construct and need to include the word of in its translation. Just like that. Oh, in fact, there was another one right here. Did you all notice it? Einei Chachamim. The eyes of the wise. All right. How are we doing on time? I want to jump forward a bit to, where is it? Slide 42. Oh, don't do that to me. 42. Okay, I'm jumping forward to, if I can remember, I think it's Deuteronomy 18:15. I hope that's correct. If not, then I stand to be corrected. I love being corrected. And a little bit of background information on this passage, I guess. In Judaism, it is far less important what you believe and far more important what you actually do. Now, I know that flies in the face of many theologies. It's like, no, you got to have your theology straight and your beliefs correct, and then your actions follow. I agree with that. I really do. If everything up here is good, then everything that comes out of you, whether words or actions, will align with it. I agree 100%. But when it comes to Judaism, there's usually not a big stench about theology. It's just a matter of, here's the tradition. This is how it's supposed to be done. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to, who cares what you believe? So I mean, it's kind of like is it like a chicken and egg problem, or is it two sides of one coin? I guess it's two sides of one coin. What you believe and what you do should mirror each other. Anyway, the reason I say this is because Judaism cares a lot more about following the commandments of the Bible and subsequently also the traditions of the rabbis, but I digress. Cares a lot more about following the commandments of the Bible than theology. Did you all know that there is a Torah command to obey Messiah? That's fantastic. It's right here. Did anybody double check me whether it was Deuteronomy 18:15? If not, then just let me know. Who wants to read this verse right here? Oh, come on. Someone pretty, please.
I will then.
All right. So I see Cheryl. And then what may I call you, please, ma'am?
Catherine.
Catherine. Cheryl, I'll let you have this one. Catherine, can I give you the next one?
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Cheryl, go ahead, please.
אוקיי, נביא מקרבך, מאחיך כמוני, יקים לך אדוני אלוהיך, אליו תשמעון.
I'm going to fill in the syllable divisions. And well, I'm going to go ahead and put it right there, but you guys don't know how to pronounce that unless you do. All right, I think that's all of them. I'll read through it one time. By the way, excellent reading, Cheryl. Follow along with me. Navi mikirbecha me'achecha kamoni yakim lecha Adonai. Of course, that's the rabbinic tradition to pronounce God's name as Adonai, but anyone wants to pronounce it differently, then that's between you and God, not me, so help yourself. Elohecha elav tishma'un. All right, so what have you just read? Navi is a prophet. Mikirbecha. Does anyone know the absolute form of the root of this word?
Midbar.
If you wanted to look this up in a dictionary, what would you look up?
Kufresh bet.
Okay, kufresh bet. Oh dear, let's make that pencil a little thicker. Kuf resh bet. How do we pronounce it? Without vowels, I don't know what to do with it.
Karaf?
Kerev.
Kerev?
Kerev.
Kerev.
Mm-hmm. So kerev has two artificial segals. Looks like the original form of the word should have been something like kirb or kirbu. Remember what we were talking about earlier about those kotel forms? Well, this is a kittel form.
Yes.
And just to be complete, there's also a katel form. Katel, kitel, and kotel. And this kotel was originally kutel, but we don't talk about that. Kotel. So there are three different segolets. Most of them fit this form right here, katel, like malko. What's the absolute form of malko? Melech. Exactly. So melech has two segols. Well, where did the off sound go? Well, if you go back into the construct form, you get malko.
Oh.
There it is. Just like here, we've got kirbo or kirbecha or whoever's it is. Doesn't really matter. We'll call it kirbo. So kerev is the absolute form. The construct form is kirbo. I'll just put an O on the end for consistency. So it's his kerev or his melech. And then we already talked about kotel, like kodesh. That maintains the O vowel here. Ugh, I'm getting too tightly cramped in this corner. Okay, kodesh. If we want to say his holiness, it would be?
Kod sho.
Very good. Kod sho. And the code right here, it's a kamatz katan, very frustrating, but it's still an O sound. Kod sho. So these are the three flavors of what are called segolets. They're nouns that have penultimate stress. Again, go to Hungry for Hebrew and watch the video
I
under
posted the
grammar.
link in the chat.
Thank you so
I
much. So
posted
have a
the
link.
video in the chat.
Have a look in the chat where Eileen put the link. Save that for later. And Make sure you have about an hour or so free. It's a fascinating study, at least for nerds like me. Okay. Mikirbecha is from the word kerev, which means guts or inward parts. Mi means from. Kerev, innards. Among you is essentially what it's translating here. Me'achecha, there's that mem again, that means from. Over here it was me, over here it's me. Why the difference? Why are these different? Why is this one with a mem, a chirik, and a dagesh, and this one over here is with a mem and a tzere? Why are they different? Gutturals are always messing up vowels. Achecha, it becomes me'achecha. It brings that E at the front of the mouth to the back of the mouth just a little bit further, back there where the gutturals are pronounced. Gutturals are always messing up vowels. They're trying to pull those front vowels to the back. Me'achecha. Okay, so me means from. Yours. It's not Caitlin. What was your name?
Catherine.
Catherine. Catherine. Would you like, I wonder, do you happen to have a copy of my grammar cheat sheet?
No.
If you're interested, or if there's anyone here who doesn't have a copy of it, I'm going to go ahead and share it in the chat. Where are you? Where are you? There you are. This one and the upper level one as well. I'll go ahead and share that one too. And send. Good. All right. So what I'm discussing right now is this big menagerie of a chart. I'll just simplify it right here where we get some very important information. In Hebrew, you can add suffixes that refer to certain people, like his, hers, mine, yours. I call them pronominal suffixes. Here are the verbal prefixes and suffixes, like Aleph says I will, and T says I did. So adaber, I will speak. Dibarti, I spoke. And of course, here's your ani, the subject. So we've got our first person common singular. That person is related to all of these forms. Here's a different form. Blue is for masculine, pink is for feminine. You know how it works. White is for common gender. I want to share this with you because when I ask things like cha, to whom does that refer? You can always just go over to your handy dandy sheet, see the cha right over there. There we go. Cha refers to you, yours,
You.
belongs to you. Okay, so cha is your, me is from, what's in the middle?
Ah.
Ach, well, it's actually achi.
My
Achi.
bad.
So we'll get yod here for a couple of different reasons. We'll either get it because we're looking at a plural noun, like it is here, of your brothers, and or it could be because the third root letter was a yod or a vav that turned into a yod and then just went missing. You know, yods and vavs go missing. We've mentioned that before. Here, the original root of ach was probably achu, which in Hebrew turned into achi, and then eventually just turned into ach. How do we know that ahu was the original? Well, because it's still preserved in Arabic, and because if you take it into the feminine form, you add the feminine tav to the end, what do you get? The word for sister, ahot. It's part of the root with a feminine tav at the end. Anyway, me'achecha, from your brothers. A prophet in your midst from among your brothers, kamoni, the ni at the end or e at the end, probably ni, refers to ani, me. Kamoni is the word like me. Wait a second. Who's speaking?
Moses.
Right. Deuteronomy is almost entirely a monologue from Moses towards the people of Israel before they go into the land. A prophet from your midst, from the midst of your brothers, or from your midst, from among your brothers, like me. Wow, that's setting the bar high. Moses was kind of a one of a kind guy. Yakim lecha Adonai. All right, Yakim, we see a yod at the front. Who's the built-in subject? Well, handy dandy chart says yod at the beginning of a verb says he will
You.
do something. He will. Here's the he. There's the incompleted will. He will do something. Who he? Well, probably Yod He Vav He, the Lord. He's the explicit subject. Yod He Vav He is the explicit subject. He is the built-in subject. He will. What's the root?
Kum.
Very good. The root is kum. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't see a vav in there. That's because vav
Yes, the
are
yud.
weak and they go missing. So the yud here is telling us that it's causative. Where are you? Where you are? Okay, in this cheat sheet, we'll scooch it over just a little. And when we get a little bit better in Hebrew, we'll learn about the 7 different kinds of verbs and what kind of nuance they give to the verb. And he feel is causative. It has a yod built into it right there. If he will do something, then it should take this pattern where the pei, ayin, and lamed are arbitrary root letters. Well, the root that we have, kum, has a vav, and that causes problems. So the yod we're looking at is part of the pattern of the word, and it means cause. So if kum means be vertical, erect, then yakim means cause to be erect or to raise up. He will cause to be erect, or that is raise up. L'cha, for you, to you, the Lord will. What will he raise up? Navi, a prophet from among you, from your brothers like me, the Lord your God, Elohecha. Here's the command. Elav, to him, tishma'un. Now the root is shema. I think we all know the root shema is in the prayer Shema Yisrael. Tav at the front and u at the end means you all will or shall, and the noon at the end is paragogic. It's probably a vestige of the original suffix of this verb, and in Hebrew it gets left off and goes missing most of the time, much like a lot of other noons we see. But it's still here. That tells us that the text we're looking at is very, very old. Anyway, Tishma'un, you all will hear, heed, hearken, listen. Okay? Shema doesn't mean, oh, I heard something. It means I heard and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to hearken. So unto him you shall hearken. There it is. There's the commandment. As long as we can identify who this Navi, this prophet, that is Kamoni, like me, Moses, then whoever he is, then you all shall hearken unto him. There it is, commandment in the Torah that says, listen to the Messiah. All right, this next verb is, verse, is quite long. Before I go there, any comments or questions? Who wants to read a nice long verse? I think it was yours, Catherine, right?
Okay.
Caitlin. Catherine.
Catherine, actually, it's German. So it's German.
Uh, well, of course, my German just went blank. Nochmal,
Catherine.
Katrin.
Ken. Okay. ככל אשר שאלת, האם אדוני אלוהיך בחורף ביום הקהל לאמור לא אוסף לשמוע את קול אדוני אלוהי ואת האש הגדולה הזאת לא הזאת הזאת לא אראה עוד ולא אמות.
Du kannst sehr gut lesen. Excellent reading.
Thank you.
Kechol, everyone follow along with me. I'll read through one more time. Kechol asher sha'alta me'im Adonai Elohecha b'chorev b'yom hakahal לאמור, לא אוסף לשמוע את קול אדוני אלוהי ואת האש הגדולה הזאת לא אראה עוד ולא אמות. All right, let's see. Where should we start? What is ka?
Is it from the root kol, meaning all?
The second half of the word is. I'm referring just to the kaf at the beginning of this word. Ka.
It's
Like, is it like?
Yeah, kaf compares. So like, as, according to. We've already mentioned the mem. What is it?
From.
From. What about bet?
In.
Good. It has to do with closeness, whether it's in, at, with, by, among, has something, or even against. If someone is against you, they are close to you. So b has to do with closeness, usually in or with, but you'll have to figure out case by case how to translate it. What about l?
To.
To.
Shows direction, either to or for, belonging to. Okay, so some sort of direction like to or for. Are there any other preformatives that I've left out here? Like prepositions that prefix on to the following word. I can't think of any. I think this is all of them. But we
Bayom.
all right, so there's the b like we saw earlier. B. And there's another le that turns into le. Why? Because gutturals mess up vowels. What about the?
Conjunction.
Conjunction. It's not limited to just the word and, is it? The is much more versatile than the English word and is. It could mean and, but, or, and then, so then, after that. I mean, just use your discretion. All right, here's another preformative, ha. What is ha?
The.
Ah, yeah, it's the definite article. The or the, depending on how you want to say it. Ha kahal, the assembly. Ha esh, the fire. And here we see another example of gutturals messing up vowels. We expect a hey, patach, dagesh, but here the aleph will not take a dagesh, so it messes up the vowel and lengthens it. It compensates. Ha-esh, ha-gdola, ha-zot. Question, esh, fire, masculine or feminine?
Mm.
All nouns in Hebrew are either masculine or feminine, or sometimes both. If somebody way back in the past got confused,
It's
is this
feminine.
masculine? It's feminine. How do you know?
Dola.
Very
Agdola.
good. The adjective never lies. The noun can be irregular. Esh doesn't look very feminine, but the adjective never lies. Hagdola is feminine. So is zot. Zot has a feminine tav on the end. This one, feminine. So you always look at your adjective, or your verb can also tell you who the built-in subject is. Let me see if I can, like, for example, sha'alta is a verb. Who's the built-in subject with that ta suffix?
You feminine singular.
You in singular is correct.
Mm,
Masculine.
You a man.
mas-
Mhm.
masculine.
You sha'al sought. You desired or sought or whatever. Kechol, according to all, that you sought. Because this verb is masculine, it means that its subject is masculine. So you can use the verb as well to determine if a noun is masculine or feminine, but this is a bad example because we don't get to see the explicit subject. Okay. While we're on the subject of built-in subjects, yes, pun intended, who is the built-in subject of all three of these verbs?
First common singular.
I.
I.
Right. Osef, or originally Osif, turns into Osef. I will cause to gather to it or add or do again. So I will not again do something. Lishmoa, hear, listen, heed, hark, obey. I will not ra'ah, see. Od, anymore. Velo amut, and I will not moot, die, or so that I not die. Who said this? Who said, I don't want to keep hearing the voice of the Lord? Who said, I don't want to see this great fire anymore? Who said, so that I will not die?
Kahal?
Well, right. Yeah, the individuals of the Kahal. It's the you all that Moses is talking to, quoting them as saying, I blah, 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 blah. Okay, here he's quoting the people. Lemor is going to act like a quotation mark in Hebrew. There are no quotation marks yet. They haven't been invented. Gosh, we just invented the alphabet. There's no quotation marks yet. So the word lemor acts like a beginning quotation mark. So here we have Moses speaking, blah, 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 lemor. Oh, now he's quoting someone else. Now the someone else, the I, whoever that is saying, blah, 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 blah. Now you have to figure out where the end of the quote is. It's not always 100% clear, but this time it is. Because of the I will, or excuse me, I will not, I will not, I will not. This is probably the end of the quote. Unless the next verse continues with I, then maybe the quote goes even further. All right, comments or questions on this before we read another verse? Oh, look at the cute little verse. Who wants to read this little teeny tiny thing? Eileen, go ahead.
Va lemor. No, no.
Vayomer. Mhm.
Vayomer Adonai al
Elai.
Elai ha he no ha ito I veu
Vu.
bu asher diveru
Diberu.
u.
All right. So as we're reading through, as we're reading through the Hebrew Bible, we're going to get this vayomer. What kind of a verb is vayomer?
So vayiktor.
Vayikto.
Vayiktol. That's correct. There's a vav, a patach, and a dagesh at the front.
Mm.
And what's the significance of this so-called vayiktol form? What does it mean? What does it tell us?
It's past narrative.
Passive or passive.
Good. It's not passive, it's past narrative. All right. So past, we know what past is. I did something yesterday. He did something a year ago. That's past. Narrative says we're telling a story. So, and then this happened is a good way to translate it. And then that happened. And then this happened. And then that happened. You know how the Bible does that. And then. That's what we're looking at. It's the most common verbal form in the Bible. So because we have a vayiktol here that tells us what the next thing is that happened, that's a clue that we're moving on to the next segment of the story and that what was happening before is drawn to a close. Remember, we had a quote, I will not, I will not, I will not. How did we know where that quote ended? Vayiktol. New page, new segment. Okay, so that previous thing closed off. So here's the context that lets us know that that quote ended in the previous verse. Vayomer, the yod tells us who the built-in subject is.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm seeing vayiktor in my own personal reading, and I wish I could just show you where I saw it, but I'm seeing a vayiktor without a dagesh in the yud.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason for that?
Well, I'll give you the textbook reason for it, and then you decide whether it's a good reason. All right, so this word right here, vaidabru, will tend to not have a dagesh in the yod, even though it should. Well, that's not fair. Why doesn't it have a dagesh in the yod?
Schwab.
So occasionally, when we expect there to be a strong dagesh, yet if there is a shva on that letter, it will simply omit the dagesh. So if we see words like yim, here's another example, halviyim, it should have been halviyim, the Levites or Levites. There's a shva here. You usually won't see a dagesh in there. It happens as well with the word hamlachim as well. There's the shva. We expect a dagesh in there. Won't always show up. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. What we notice, what do I have, a mouse in my pocket? What grammars will typically say is that letters that have more of a liquid sound to them, like y, l, m, n, they are typically going to be the ones that forgo a dagesh if they have a shva on them. One grammar that I read called Basics of Biblical Hebrew uses the mnemonic coal mine to help you remember the 6 most common letters that will forgo a dagesh when there's a shva under them. Kuf is the only exception to that whole liquid letter rule. And it's probably because kuf originally was an emphatic, which means it had a sound in it much like a guttural, and gutturals affect vowels and whatever. So there's a lot of speculation that goes into it, but yes, it is a well-known phenomenon that certain letters, especially these 6, will forgo a dagesh if there's a shva under it.
Thank
Let's see. Yik. Oh, how about this one? Yikhu. We saw the word, or we saw the verb earlier, lakach, which means to take. There should be a strong dagesh in the kuf here, representing that missing lamed. But in the word yikhu, sorry, you probably won't see a dagesh there because it's a kuf with a shva. Bummer. Vayomer Adonai Elai, and he said, and then he said, that is the Lord, Elai, unto me, Heitivu. The root of this verb appears to be Yod Tet Bet, a root that we know better as Tet Vav Bet. Tov. Huh? Come again? I'm of the opinion that the original root was Yod Tet Bet, and that this O vowel in here actually got introduced because of the pattern of an ancient word, but I digress. It doesn't really matter. These are essentially the same meaning. Some people will die on the hill that says, no, they're 2 different roots. Okay, have at it. It's all yours. Hey, tivu has a hey at the front, which tells us it's he feel causative. Oo at the end is the suffix that says they did something. So they have caused good, or they have done well. Asher diberu, in that which they have spoken. God's like, you know what? The people don't want to see the fire. They don't want to hear the voice. They don't want to die. Fine. They spoke well. I'll talk to you, Moses, and you bring the message to them. All right, next reader.
I'll go if no one else.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Okay. Navi Akim Lehem Mikerev Achechem. Didn't I just read this?
It's similar.
Okay. Navi Akim Lehem Mikerev Achechem Kemocha ונתת ונתתי דברי בפיו, ודיבר אלוהים את כל אשר עצבנו.
Good. Did you take Aramaic, Cheryl?
I can do an iron like that. No,
No, it
I
was a
worked
different
with-
question.
I worked with, no, why do you ask that?
Because I noticed that you, in your pronunciation, you're doing something that Aramaic ultimately, can I say enshrine? They ultimately adopted. I circled these kamatz vowels here because I heard you reducing them. Instead of navi, it's navi. Instead of lahem, it's lahem. And kamocha becomes kmocha. You're reducing them. And that's what Aramaic did.
I don't know.
Like to a ridiculous degree, actually. So anyway, all I mean to say is mind your kamatz vowel. If it's there, give it a little bit more time. You know, we're not in a rush here. So just enunciate well. Navi, kim, lahem. I'm going to read through it, obviously, if anyone wants to follow along. Lahem, mikerev, achech. Wow. Achehem, kamocha. Vinatati, the stress must go here. We'll talk about that. Dvarai, befiv, v'diber alehem, et kol asher atzavenu. All right, a prophet, akim, this is very similar to what you read earlier. A prophet I will cause to be erect, or I will raise up, lahem, for them, mikerevachehem, from among their brothers, kamocha, like you. So the first one we read was Moses saying, there will be a prophet like me. And now we have God saying, I will raise up a prophet like you. So the person's different. Venatati. Why is it important to put the stress here instead of there where we usually expect it?
Because it's a vekata.
Excellent. So katal is the word used to describe some sort of completed action that has a suffix at the end of the verb, like t, that says I am the subject, right? Katal. But if it's a vekatal, then there's that conversive vav that flips it. So instead of and I gave or put or something like that, the vav turns it into and I will put or give or place in the first person common singular form and in the second masculine singular. So I and you, a man, in those two forms, the stress moves in the vekatal form. The regular form would be natati, I gave. But here it's venatati, and I will give or put. Dvarai, my words, befiv, in his pay, mouth. Yes. There's a weak yod right there. V'diber alehem, and he shall speak. So diber means he spoke. V'diber, and he shall speak. Also a vekatal.
Yeah.
Alehem, unto them. Et, what will he speak? Et tells us what it is. It's the direct object marker. What's receiving the action of being spoken? Et kol, everything. Everything what? Asher atzavenu, which, or that, and that tells us more information about the all, that atzavenu, I shall command him. Him? Let's break this word up. What's the root? Who's the subject? Does it have a suffix? What's the binyan? Let's parse this thing out. Help me out.
It's tzadi vav nun. Nope.
I agree with Tzadi and Vav.
Hey.
Good. I would call it a yod. In a dictionary, it's hey, and it means
To command.
right, like the same root from mitzvah or mitzvot. Tziva, those are all the same root, has to do with commanding. All right, who's the subject?
Like to you. Is this the Lord talking to Moses? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
It is,
Okay.
because it's the Lord saying, I will raise up from among their brothers like you, Moses, and I will put my words in his mouth. So yes, this is God speaking.
What was the question again?
The question is, what's the built-in subject of this verb, atzavenu?
The subject is I,
Mhm.
first person common, that's the aleph.
That's the aleph, first common singular, I.
And atzavenu. I shall command.
There's the kicker.
Yeah, because the noon is usually with we.
Very good. Yeah, usually nu is the suffix that says us or we. That's first common plural. And like in the word anachnu, which means we, right? Nu usually refers to us. Here, however, there's a strong dagesh. There's something else going on here. What's happening is we're getting a conflation of a mysterious noon plus the suffix who. Now, who, I think we can all agree, is a suffix that refers to 3ms, him.
Mhm.
The noon is what's messing us up here. This is a what's called an energic noon. Historically, it probably would have added a little something, a little nuance to the verb that added certainty. You know, like I will surely command him or something like that. However, the grammars will tell you that it doesn't mean anything anymore. So we just kind of gloss over these noons that show up, these energic noons that show up. But the point is there's a noon plus a who. Hey is a very weak letter, excuse me, a very soft letter that gets lost. And so it kind of back assimilates as a strong dagesh. Wow. That's a lot of mental gymnastics going on there, but we can tell from the context that him, he is the one that we're talking about, the prophet that will be raised up by God. So it doesn't make sense to put an us in here. So what's the
Right.
bigger picture here? Well, there are plenty of places in the Bible where you'll see this suffix nu with a dot, with a dagesh, strong dagesh, which is actually referring to him. This is the explanation. Energic noon combines with who, the original 3ms suffix, and produces nu. How do you say from him?
Mimenu.
Menu.
Mimenu. So we get to see the same thing happening in the word mimenu as what's happening over here, but we have two different noons. Here, the noon is from the reduplication of min. Min, hu. Min, hu. And the noons get lost, or the hey gets lost. And instead of min, hu, we get mimenu. It's the exact same phenomenon, but just a different noon. How do you say like? That's not a fair question. No, that's not a fair question.
Mohu.
I was going to say, I was going to ask, how do you say like him? But, you know, just for kicks and giggles, let's do it. How do you say like him? We have like you. How do you say like him?
Mocha.
Kamohu.
Ha.
Kamohu.
Who.
Kamohu. Very good. So this doesn't have any noon in there to cause the original hey to go missing. By the way, see this word right here, bethieve? This yod vav at the end of the word is not this is not the original pronunciation. Bethieve. Anyone who knows anything about Hebrew knows that vav was not originally a v sound. It was originally a w sound,
Wah.
which was used to represent o and u vowels. So it had three different jobs: w, o, and u. Now, bethieve is not original. What was? I'll tell you what it was. Bethihu. The problem is that hey, being a soft letter, easily gets swallowed up in the surrounding letters. So this bethihu becomes bethiu, like this, bethiu, which then strangely becomes bethieve. We went from an oo sound to a v. And somebody made a grave mistake doing that, but hey, that's modern Hebrew, so that's the way we pronounce it. Stop asking questions. But yeah, the original 3FS, the 3MS, the original 3MS suffix was who, and that's the way I represent it in my chart here. Move, please. There it is. Who is original, and it turns into O. Who is original, and it turns into this menagerie, Av. Or in the case of thieve or peeve, there's a yod that causes the vowel to change to a chirik, but the point is yod vav at the end instead of yod hey vav.
Is that plural?
The
Okay.
ones on this side are categorically going to appear on plural nouns.
Okay.
But I don't call it plural. I think in my original chart I called this side plural, and it was a bit of a mistake because we can get singular nouns that have a final yod as part of the root, and it'll take the same form. That's what know that there's at least a pay and a yod. That's closer to the original form. And the word pay lost it. Where's the yod? It's gone. Bye-bye. We're lazy. We stopped pronouncing it. So now here's a vowel representing that missing yod. Okay, the point is if a root ends in a yod, then you're going to maintain it when you add your suffix. So, boom. Singular, but there's still a yod because it's part of the root, not part of the suffix. Same as we have right here. Did you know the root of el is aleph lamed yod? Well, no, usually it just shows up as aleph lamed. Very rarely is the yod preserved, except in the construct form. That's why some prepositions will take one set of pronominal suffixes and other prepositions will take the other set of pronominal suffixes. It has to do with whether there was an original yod. All right, comments or questions? We got a little complex there at the end. I hope I hope that not too many of you got lost in the details. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. You know how to come to the lesson. Follow the link that I'll provide in the WhatsApp or Telegram groups. Invite a friend if you would like to. This is open for anyone to attend. My goal is to teach the world Hebrew. And one
Yay.
student at a time. Yay! And if anyone wants to contribute to this effort, you're welcome to do it. Otherwise, continue to come. This is a free lesson. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Same day, same time. Until then, lehitraot v'shalom.
להתראות
Thank you so much.
לשלום.
תודה רבה.
Shalom. Bavakasha.
תודה רבה.
Shalom, shalom.